Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, today we are starting new chapter, chapter 6, the activities of Lord Rishabdeva. Text number 1 onwards. Rajovacha nanunam bhagav atma ramanam yoga samirit jnana vabhajit karma bija namera shravayani punah klesha dani bhavitum arhanti adrichyopagatani. King Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami, "My dear Lord, for those who are completely pure in heart, knowledge is attained by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, and attachment for fruitive activity is completely burnt to ashes. For such people, the powers of mystic yoga automatically arise. They do not cause distress. Why then did Rishabdeva neglect them?" A pure devotee is constantly engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever is necessary for the discharge of devotion service is automatically attained, though it may appear to be the result of mystic yoga power. Sometimes a devotee displays a little yogic power by manufacturing gold. A little quantity of gold captivates foolish people. Just a sec. So a little quantity of gold captivates foolish people, and thus the yogi gets many followers who are willing to accept such a tiny person as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a yogi may also advertise himself as Bhagavan. However, a devotee does not have to exhibit such magical wonders. Without practicing the mystic yogic process, he achieves even greater opulence all over the world. Under the circumstances, Lord Rishabdev refused to manifest mystic yogic perfections. And Maharaj Parikshit asked why he did not accept them, since for a devotee they are not at all disturbing. A devotee is never distressed or satisfied by material opulence. His concern is how to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If by the grace of the Supreme Lord a devotee achieves extraordinary opulence, he utilizes the opportunity for the Lord's service. He is not disturbed by the opulence. So Maharaj Parikshit was asking this question that Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev, who's Supreme Lord himself, and he had all the powers of mystic yoga. Why did he just neglect them? Why did he not just utilize them? So just like he was living naked and then going here there, and then people were passing stool and urine at him and beating him up, calling him bad names, and then he just lied down as a python, Ajagar Mriti, and and rolling in his own stool and urine. Why would he do that? Why did he just get some magical powers because of yogic perfections and just live opulently and use everything in the service of the Lord? Generally, and this King Parikshit is asking, who himself has left everything to come to listen to Bhagavatam. And also, generally, devotees have this tendency that, oh, I should make more money and I can utilize it in the service of Krishna. Well, the problem is, if we try to make more money, first of all, then we might be spending too much time into that. So atyahara prayasascha. Rupa Goswami says it can hamper our progress in bhakti. And where is the guarantee that once we get the money, where is the guarantee that whether we will get the money, and where is the guarantee once we get too much money that we will not get puffed up, will not get attached to that opulence. So too much risk is there. And if Krishna wants, he can get as much as money he wants for his own purposes. All we have to do is just have full faith in him and just want to serve him properly. That's it. Rishiruvacha satyamuktam kintaviha bhayeke na manasvadha vishrimba manavasthanasya shat kirat iva sangachante. Srila Shukdev Goswami replied, "My dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's actions." So those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind, because they know, although they have the mind in control, but it can always go astray if they are little careless. So they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's actions. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Our acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Even one who has renounced the world and has taken sannyas should not renounce chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Renunciation does not mean that one has to renounce Sankirtan Yajna. Similarly, one should not renounce charity or tapasya. The yoga system for control of the mind and senses must be strictly followed. Lord Rishabdev showed how severe types of tapasya could be performed, and he set an example for all others. So tapasya has to be performed. Yajna, dan, and tap should never be given up. So yajna for us is the Sankirtan yajna. Dan means a charity of, it could be charity of anything, charity of money, charity of labor, charity of knowledge, whatever we do, charity. And then tapasya has to be there, austerities. Of course, once somebody is at a very high level, for him it's not even tapasya, but it looks like tapasya for the neophytes like us. For him, it must be enjoying it. Tapasya is meant for our purification. But if we enjoy it, means we have already become pure. But still, tapasya has to continue. Tatha cha uktam na kuryat karehi chit sakhyam manasi hi anavasthite yad vishrambha chira chiranam chaskanda tap eshwaram. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Saubhari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. The first business of one trying to advance in spiritual life is to control the mind and the senses. That's the first business. It's so difficult. It's not that easy. It's not that easy as Prabhupada wrote it in one line. It's not at all easy. As Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamai vancho jivaloke jivbhutasnat, mane shashtani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. Although the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and are therefore in a transcendental position, they are still suffering in this material world and struggling for existence due to the mind and the senses. To get out of this false struggle for existence and become happy in the material world, one has to control the mind and the senses and be detached from material conditions. One should never neglect austerities and penances, one should always perform them. Lord Rishabdev personally showed us how to do this. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, it is specifically stated, a grihastha, vanpras, sannyasi, and brahmachari should be very careful when associating with women. One is forbidden to sit down in a solitary place, even with one's mother, sister, or daughter. In our Krishna consciousness movement, it has been very difficult to disassociate ourselves from women in our society, especially in Western countries. We are therefore sometimes criticized, but nonetheless, we are trying to give everyone a chance to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and thus advance spiritually. If we stick to the principle of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra offenselessly, then by the grace of Srila Haridas Thakur, we may be saved from the allurement of women. However, if we are not very strict in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we may at any time fall victim to women. So this yajna, dan, and tapasya has to be done. And more we have to engage ourselves in these activities to make considerable amount of advancement. And this is what Prabhupada says. However, if we are not very strict in chanting Hare Krishna, we may fall at any time victim to women, or for women to men. I mean, it just means the opposite sex. So one has to carry on with this chanting. Even while chanting, the mind plays games, keeps on playing games. So, of course, different devotees have spoken about different art or techniques of chanting. But still, mind will play games, and in our hearts, so many desires are there, and the desires will keep on coming up forth. I mean, they keep on coming in the front. What is happening? And all those desires, nonsensical desires, means the heart is getting cleansed, but still they disturb. So all we have to do while we are chanting, consciously, we have to chant. And we can observe or at least imagine. And this actually happens, but we cannot see it. So we have to imagine the holy name going inside our heart. When we are chanting, speaking, hearing, we just see the holy name going inside in our heart and cleansing it and kicking out all the desires, all the dust, just kicking out. Just keep on imagining that cleansing is taking place. And actually it happens like that. But to concentrate upon chanting, we can think of many things, but this is one thing that I think of. The holy name is going inside and kicking out all the dirt, all the dust, everything, all the desires, the nonsensical desires, just coming out again and again, over and over. And the soul is getting pure, and the consciousness is getting pure and pure and pure. It is difficult. And the steps in chanting, we can't even imagine the chanting at the stage of love for Krishna. Right now, we are just trying to concentrate. Even that is difficult. Even beyond that concentration, we try to chant with the mind fully engaged, fully absorbed. Beyond that, chanting with our heart involved. Now it is beyond the mind. It's our heart is involved. Now beyond that, chanting with some attachment to Krishna, with some relationship. And beyond that, chanting with love. We can't even imagine what kind of chanting that would be. It's the same holy name, same person, but consciousness will be completely different. So chanting with attention, wonderful chanting. But chanting with love, every word that is coming out with love, that is far, far, far beyond just attention. So that is the stage we have to achieve. So at that stage, we'll read about Bharat Maharaj, because next chapter is coming up about Bharat Maharaj and how he was at the level of Bhav Bhakti, not Prema Bhakti yet, Bhav Bhakti, when he fell down because he got attracted to that deer. Of course, in his case, it is a fall down because he had to take the body of a deer next life, so it was some gap. And then he took the form of Jad Bharat, and after that he went back. So there's a book called Madhurya Kadamini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in which he says, when we talk about anartha nivritti, anartha means unwanted desires in our heart. Unwanted in the sense they are not at all required or wanted on the path of bhakti. So those desires, they start to go away. It's not like they're going to go all of them away. Like we have discussed the steps, Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajan Kriya, then Anartha Nivritti, then Nishtha, then Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, Prem. But it means it's not like Anartha Nivritti and then Nishtha will happen. Or Anartha Nivritti means desires will keep on going away, and slowly we make progress. So it's not black and white, it's lots of gray areas, shades are there. And Sadhu Sangha has to go on all the way and even beyond, and Bhajan Kriya has to go on. So he says, even at the stage of Bhav Bhakti, although the anarthas are not there, visible, but they can reappear if we are not careful, if we are not vigilant. And this is what Shukdev Goswami is trying to say here. He's not speaking exactly, oh, Bhav Bhakti or Prema Bhakti, that kind of things, but he says you've got to be vigilant. Only at the stage of Prema Bhakti, anarthas are completely gone and they don't come back. So we have to come to that stage to really come to the level where we can go back. But Prabhupada's mercy is always there. So that's a different story. But from our side, we have to try to make as much progress as we can. Nityam dadati kamasya chidram tamanu ye areyaha yogina krit matrasya patyur jayeva punchchali. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. In this verse, the word punchali refers to a woman who is easily carried away by men. Such a woman is never to be trusted. Unfortunately, in the present age, women are never controlled. According to the directions of the Shastras, women are never to be given freedom. When a child, a woman must be strictly controlled by her father. When she is young, she must be strictly controlled by her husband. And when she is old, she must be controlled by her elderly sons. If she is given independence and allowed to mingle unrestrictedly with men, she will be spoiled. A spoiled woman being manipulated by paramours. Paramours means the men she's having relationships with, might even kill her husband. This example is given here because a yogi desiring to get free from material conditions must always keep his mind under control. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that in the morning our first business should be to beat the mind with shoes 100 times, and before going to bed, to beat the mind 100 times with a broomstick. In this way, one's mind can be kept under control. An uncontrolled mind and an unchaste wife are the same. An unchaste wife can kill her husband at any time, and an uncontrolled mind, followed by lust, anger, greed, madness, envy, and illusion, can certainly kill the yogi. When the yogi is controlled by the mind, he falls down into the material condition. One should be very careful of the mind, just as a husband should be careful of an unchaste wife. So the example Shukdev Goswami is giving, just an unchaste wife, means an uncontrolled mind. So mind should be completely under the control of the soul or the person. But if it is not controlled, then it wants to go here and there. And just like unchaste woman, she can have many affairs, and those people can come and kill the husband because husband is trying to control the wife and trying not to let her enjoy the way she wants to. So similarly, the mind can play games because with all the desires mind wants to fulfill, the soul is in the way. Without understanding that without the soul, mind cannot do anything. But the mind, uncontrolled mind, wants to enjoy. And it can kill the soul. Of course, soul cannot be killed, but it can kill the soul in the sense it can kill the progress of the soul. So one has to be very, very careful. And that example earlier of a good hunter, when he captures some animals and the birds, he doesn't just let them loose. He keeps them under control. He always makes sure the net is tightened properly so the animals don't run away. So similarly, the mind has to be controlled and one has to be always careful, not letting it loose. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, every morning when we get up, beat up the mind with shoes 100 times, and before we go to bed at night, beat up the mind 100 times with the broomstick. That only what it means is the soul has to tell the mind, I am your controller. You're not my controller. You have to obey me, obey my instructions. Kamo manyur madolo bhashok moho bhaya daya karma bandhashta yanmula sri kuryat ko nu tad buddha. The mind is a root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. Combined, these constitute bondage to fruitive activity. What learned man would put faith in the mind? The mind is the original cause of material bondage. It is followed by many enemies, such as anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. The best way to control the mind is to engage it always in Krishna consciousness. Savai mana Krishna padara bindayo. Since the followers of the mind bring about material bondage, we should be very careful not to trust the mind. So, the first step of yoga is to control the mind and the senses. And of all them, mind is the most difficult, most obstinate, most stubborn. Even Arjun told Krishna, it is so difficult. It's easier to control the raging wind than the mind. Text 6. So I'll just go to the translation. Lord Rishabdev was the head of all kings and emperors within this universe, but assuming the dress and language of an Avadhuta, he acted as if dull and materially bound. Consequently, no one could observe his divine opulence. He adopted this behavior just to teach yogis how to give up the body. Nonetheless, he maintained his original position as a plenary expansion of Lord Vasudeva Krishna. Remaining always in that state, he gave up his pastimes as Lord Rishabdeva within the material world. If following in the footsteps of Lord Rishabdeva, one can give up his subtle body, there is no chance that one will accept material body again. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This is possible simply by keeping oneself an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. One must understand his constitutional position and the constitutional position of the Supreme Lord as well. Both have the same spiritual identity. Maintaining oneself as a servant of the Supreme Lord, one should avoid rebirth in this material world. If one keeps himself spiritually fit and thinks of himself as an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, he will be successful at the time he has to give up the material body. So one has to keep himself spiritually fit by doing those activities. Japa, yagya jnana, yagya dan and tapa. And thinks of himself as an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. So when we come to that position, means the subtle body, the material subtle body is already gone. Spiritual body has developed. Then when we give up the material body, the material gross body, then we don't take up another material body. But as long as we have this notion that I am the controller, I'm the proprietor, I'm the enjoyer, well, good luck. That's all. Bhagavatam says we have to take up the material body again and again, get beaten up by Maya, and again go through birth, old age, disease, death, adidevik, adhyatmik, adibhautik klesha, and still thinking I'm the controller. Rather, coming to the understanding, I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm a servant of servants of Krishna. I'm a servant of everything that Krishna has created. That should be our thinking. But it's very difficult because in material world, everybody is trying to be the controllers. Everybody is trying to be an enjoyer and frightened of everything. Even a beggar is proud of his penny. And sometimes beggars are there, and one beggar gets more money than others. Maybe he gets only 5 rupees extra, and he starts thinking, "See, I'm better beggar than others. I'm better." So this is all Maya. And we read about it every day. Kya leke aaya bande, kya leke jayega, and this and that. So many things about Maya. But we forget. Again we read. Again we hear. Again somebody tells us. Again we forget. So this constant struggle, it is there. It just slowly, when we get purified, then those instructions, the spiritual instructions, then they start sticking inside. So far, they just go away from one ear to another ear. That's why we used to say, that's why it's called, our society is called ISKCON. So ISKCON se sunna और ISKCON se bahar हो जाता है. But no, our society is ISKCON means is or is dono kan se sunna, and it should go into the heart. Means it should make a difference. It should bring about some difference in our thought process, in our activities, in our lives. Just inattentive chanting is not enough. It will not do any good for many, many millions of lifetimes. We have to bring attention, and then we have to chant from the heart, with some emotions, some feelings, loving emotions, coming to the level of loving. First of all, we have to beg with some emotions, and then love has to be there. So text 7, translation. Actually, Lord Rishabhdev had no material body, but due to Yogamaya, he considered his body material. And therefore, because he played like an ordinary human being, he gave up the mentality of identifying with it. Following this principle, he began to wander all over the world. While traveling, he came to the province of Karnataka in South India and passed through Konka, Venka, and Kutak. He had no plan to travel this way, but he arrived near Kutkachal and entered a forest there. He placed the stones within his mouth and began to wander through the forest, naked and with his hair disheveled like a madman. So I'm guessing Karnataka is Karnataka. So I hope we can find out exactly where he was and where he disappeared, and we can visit that place sometime. Text 8. Ath samir veg vidhut venu vikarshan jatukra dava nalastad vanam male lihana sahatena dadaha. While he was wandering about, a wild forest fire began. This fire was caused by the friction of bamboos, which were being blown by the wind. In that fire, the entire forest near Kutakachal and the body of Lord Rishabhdev were burnt to ashes. Such a forest fire can burn the external body of animals, but Lord Rishabhdev was not burnt. Although he apparently seemed so, Lord Rishabhdev is the super soul of all living entities within the forest, and his soul is never burnt by fire. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Adayavayam, the soul is never burnt by fire. Due to Lord Rishabhdev's presence, all the animals in the forest were also liberated from material engagement. So obviously, Lord Rishabhdev is transcendental, his body is transcendental, cannot be burnt. But this was his pastime to wind up his pastime and to unmanifest himself. And Prabhupada says, because of Lord Rishabhdev's presence, all the animals in the forest who died in that forest fire, they all got liberated. That's potency. Just like when Krishna was there in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So anybody who died from both sides, Kauravas, Pandavas, or any animals who died also, they all went back. They all got liberated. Text 9, translation. Shukdev Goswami continued speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, the king of Konka, Venka and Kutak, whose name was Arhat, heard of the activities of Rishabdev and imitating Rishabdev's principles, introduced a new system of religion. Taking advantage of Kali Yuga, the age of sinful activity, King Arhat, being bewildered, gave up the Vedic principles, which are free from risk, and concocted a new system of religion, opposed to the Vedas. That was the beginning of the Jain Dharma. So Archana Mataji asked this question. So Jain Dharma is against the system of Vedas. Why? Because they don't believe in the form of the Supreme. Many other so-called religions followed this atheistic system. When Lord Shri Krishna was present on this planet, a person named Pondrak imitated the four-handed Narayan and declared himself the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He desired to compete with Krishna. Similarly, during the time, so in this Pondrak, this story we'll read in 10th canto, but this Pondrak, he heard about Narayan, four hands of Narayan, and that Narayan carries these four weapons, Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, in the four hands. And he imitated him, means he just put on two extra arms, just like when we do it in a play, we just put two extra arms on a person who is playing as Narayan. And he went to challenge Krishna. He said, I'm the real Narayan, you're not. So Krishna laughed. He said, what nonsense is this guy? So he sent his Sudarshan Chakra. So first Sudarshan Chakra just cut off all the hands of Pondrak, and then he ran and he killed him. So he desired to compete with Krishna. Nobody can compete with Krishna. Similarly, during the time of Lord Rishabdev, the king of Konka and Venka acted like a Paramhams and imitated Lord Rishabdev. He introduced a system of religion and took advantage of the fallen condition of the people in this age of Kali. It is said in the Vedic literatures that people in this age will be more inclined to accept anyone as the Supreme Lord and accept any religious system opposed to Vedic principles. The people in this age are described as Manda Sumanda Mataya. Generally, they have no spiritual culture and therefore they're very fallen. Due to this, they will accept any religious system. Due to their misfortune, they forget the Vedic principles. Following non-Vedic principles in this age, they think themselves the Supreme Lord and thus spread the cult of atheism all over the world. So in the name of religion, in the name of Sanatana Dharma, this is what is going on. Jainism and Buddhism, they both are irreligion actually. Because they don't believe in and they don't preach that there is a form of the Lord. So everything that they do from the very beginning, it has wrong foundation. So nothing solid can be built on that foundation. Text 10, translation. People who are lowest among men and bewildered by the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord will give up the original Varnashram Dharma and its rules and regulations. They will abandon bathing 3 times daily and worshipping the Lord. Abandoning cleanliness and neglecting the Supreme Lord, they will accept nonsensical principles. Not regularly bathing or washing their mouths regularly, they will always remain unclean and they will pluck out their hair. Following a concocted religion, they will flourish. During this age of Kali, people are more inclined to irreligious systems. Consequently, these people will naturally deride Vedic authority, the followers of Vedic authority, the Brahmins, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the devotees. So this is Kali Yuga, and when people don't follow Varnashram Dharma, they just concoct, they just made up their own system of religion, and they call it, oh, this is what the real bona fide system is, and not regularly bathing or washing their mouths regularly, all concoctions. Presently, the hippies in the Western countries fit this description. They are irresponsible and unregulated. They do not bathe and they deride standard Vedic knowledge. They concoct new lifestyles and religions. There are many hippie groups at the present moment, but they all originated from King Arhat, who imitated the activities of Lord Rishabdev, who was situated on the Paramhamsa stage. King Arhat did not care for the fact that although Lord Rishabdev acted like a madman, his stool and urine were nonetheless aromatic, so much so that they nicely scented the countryside for miles around. The followers of King Arhat went under the name Jains, and they were later followed by many others, particularly by the hippies, who were more or less offshoots of Mayavad philosophy because they think themselves the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such people do not respect the real followers of Vedic principles, the ideal Brahmins. Nor do they have respect for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman. Due to the influence of this age of Kali, they are apt to concoct false religious systems. And see, all this is going on in the name of religion, in the name of spirituality. Hippies, they were in late 60s and 70s, they were like, they wanted to do everything in the name of spirituality, in the name of love. So they would just gather together, have unrestricted sex life, to remain, because they could not do any proper principles of yoga, either chanting or meditation. They would just smoke hashish or ganja and all kinds of things, and then they will just remain in that state that they could not think of anything properly, anything clearly, and they would think, "Oh, this is spirituality." Nothing to do with spirituality. Not even a human being, because they could not even think clearly. But they would think, "Oh, this is spirituality. I'm God. Aham Shiva. Shiva was me." That's a, I mean, everybody who thinks of it in that way, they all says, "I am Shiva." I don't know what kind of followers Lord Shiva has, but these are the people. They think I am Shiva, or Shiva Asmi, or Shiva Aham. And just imagine the work Srila Prabhupada has done by writing these books, by training his disciples, his followers, by establishing the society, establishing temples all over the world. And that's why his pranam mantra, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasha Desha. This is what Prabhupada has done. He has laid down a foundation, not just the foundation. He has started the structure, the building also. Now it's our duty as a service to Prabhupada, as our offering of love and gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for saving us. giving us the right knowledge. This is our service that we should preach. We should give out the right knowledge to others so that they can be saved. I know it is difficult. Preaching is very difficult, but we have to do that. We have to. We have this debt towards Srila Prabhupada. How clearly he has explained everything in his books. Text 11. Techa here vaktan vaknya nijlok yatra yandh paramparaya shvastas tamas yandhe swayameva prapatisyanti. Low-class people, due to the gross ignorance, introduce a system of religion that deviates from the Vedic principles. Following their own mental concoctions, they automatically fall down into the darkest regions of existence. In this connection, one may see Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, text 16:23, where there is a description of the downfall of the asuras, where Krishna says, those who are envious, I put them in the darkest region of hell perpetually. I do that. I am avataro rajasopa lut kavalyopa shikshanartha. In this age of Kali, people are overwhelmed by the modes of passion and ignorance. Lord Rishabhdev incarnated himself to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. The symptoms of Kali Yuga are predicted in the 12th canto, 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lavanyam Keshadharanam. It is predicted that how fallen souls will behave. They'll keep their hair long and consider themselves very beautiful. Or they will pluck out their hair as the Jains do. They'll keep themselves unclean and will not wash their mouths. Jains refer to Lord Rishabhdev as their original preceptor. If such people are serious followers of Rishabhdev, they must also take his instructions. In the 5th chapter of this 5th canto, Rishabhdev gave his 100 sons instructions whereby they could become free from the clutches of Maya. If one actually follows Rishabhdev, he will certainly be delivered from the clutches of Maya and return home back to Godhead. If one strictly follows the instructions of Rishabhdev given in the 5th chapter, he will certainly be liberated. Lord Rishabhdev incarnated specifically to deliver these fallen souls. So that's the thing. They don't follow Lord Rishabhdev properly. They don't follow his instructions. And they just concoct their own theories, own philosophies, own way of living, and then they say this is the only way. I didn't know that they don't wash their mouth regularly. I didn't know. But Prabhupada says that, and it says in the shloka also. So it must be true. So there are so many things to learn. Tasyanu gunan shlokan gayanti aho bhuva sapta samudra vatya dvipeshu varneshu adhi punyam etat gayanti yatra tyajana murare karmani bhadrani avataravanti. Learned scholars chant about the transcendental qualities of Lord Rishabhdev in this way. Oh, this earthly planet contains 7 seas and many islands and lands, of which Bharatvarsha is considered the most pious. People of Bharatvarsha are accustomed to glorifying the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his incarnations as Lord Rishabhdev and others. All these activities are very auspicious for the welfare of humanity. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Bharat Bhumite Manusya Janma Hailajar. As stated in this verse, Bharatvarsha is a most pious land. The followers of Vedic literature understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different incarnations, and they are privileged to glorify the Lord by following the directions of Vedic literature. After realizing the glories of human life, such people should take up the mission to spread the importance of human life throughout the whole world. This is a mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The word Adhi Punyam indicates that there are certainly many other pious men throughout the world, but the people of Bharatvarsha are even more pious. Therefore, they are fit to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world for the benefit of all human society. Srila Madhvacharya also recognizes the land of Bharatvarsh, Visheshat Bharate Punyam. Throughout the world, there is no question of Bhagavad Bhakti or devotional service, but the people of Bharatvarsh can easily understand the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, every inhabitant of Bharatvarsh can perfect his life by discharging Bhagavad Bhakti and then preaching this cult throughout the world for the benefit of everyone. So this is what we have to do. This is our duty. This is foremost duty of all the followers of Srila Prabhupada, to take up the mission of Prabhupada seriously and just preach. Just give out the message to others. Just give them a chance to save their existence properly. So I'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Master. Thank you.
I got many of the answers today.
Okay.
The first thought which came to my mind was कि थोड़ा ना अभी थोड़ी charity करना चाहिए और because in lockdown में कुछ charity हुआ नहीं है. So I got the answer for that you need money for that and then you have to work hard. You will get busy, not get a time for a worship. Then second thought had come to my mind that कौन सा ऐसा डंडा मुझे पढ़ना चाहिए सुबह उठ जाऊं. So I got the answer for that also.
तो पीछे प्रपात का डंडा है, वो स्टिक है प्रपात का.
मैं बोल रही हूँ मुझे वो डंडा मिल गया. So I got the answer for that thought also. And the third was the Jain धर्म का जो clarification हो गया. And it seems to be that today's class was only meant for my questions.
Prabhupada's arrangement.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Okay, so we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhupada.